afternoon. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Today on Newsfeed at noon, the United States, through its Secretary of State, affirms its commitments to the Philippines under the Mutual Defense Treaty. 17 Filipino seafarers are released after more than a year of captivity in Yemen. A bank projects the Philippine gross domestic product, or GDP growth, is expected to miss the government's target for 2025 and next year. And 90s music will have a comeback this weekend with OPM legends Wency Cornejo and Cookie Chua, among others, to render songs that defined that era. We'll have a chat with Wency and Cookie later in the show. New U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio affirms America's ironclad commitments to the Philippines under the Mutual Defense Treaty. Rubio made the remark in a phone call with Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo. The U.S. State Department says Rubio discussed China's dangerous and destabilizing actions in the South China Sea. Rubio stressed Beijing's behavior undermines regional peace and stability and is inconsistent with international law. Just last week, the Philippines and the U.S. carried out their 5th joint maritime exercises in the South China Sea since launching the drills in 2023. After more than a year of captivity in Yemen, President Marcos announces the safe release of 17 Filipino seafarers together with the rest of the crew of MV Galaxy Leader. The president expressed his gratitude to His Majesty the Sultan of Oman for their government's successful mediation. He also commended the concerned government agencies and private sector who worked with foreign governments for more than 429 days to make the release possible. The president assures the public his administration will continue to protect the rights of seafarers. As President Donald Trump returns to the Oval Office, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez, dispels worries on Trump's immigration policy, saying that while certain visa categories may be reviewed, no major policy shifts are expected for Filipino professionals in America. That and more in this report.
Donald Trump's return to power raises questions about how his America First policies will impact global alliances, including the long-standing partnership between the United States and the Philippines. But Ambassador Babe Romualdez says that relationship remains strong, especially when it comes to defense and security.
It was during the time of President Trump when then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who said that they had an ironclad commitment to the Mutual Defense Treaty. So as far as our defense arrangements are with the United States, it will remain as it is.
With the Indo-Pacific at the center of U.S. geopolitics, Romualdez says the Philippines plays a strategic role in regional security.
In terms of dealing with countries that there is a trade imbalance, will tilt towards countries that they have a strong relationship, and that is important for the security of the United States. And we play a major role in that one as far as the Indo-Pacific region is concerned.
On the trade front, Finance Secretary Ralph Recto says the Philippines has little to worry about, and Ambassador Romualdez agrees. With Trump expected to crack down on China, American companies may start looking for alternative manufacturing hubs, which could benefit the Philippines.
The Philippines is not in the list of those that will be targeted for higher tariffs because precisely our trade imbalance is not anything close to what they have with China and other countries like Canada and Mexico and probably some other Asian countries. So again, that will it will open us for more opportunities to be able to work together.
Latest data from the Philippine Statistics Authority shows the Philippines exports more to the U.S. than it imports, an 11 billion surplus as of November 2024. Romualdez says this trade position helps strengthen the country's role in high-value manufacturing.
Boeing, for instance, is doing some manufacturing in the Philippines for some parts which we export to the United States and which will benefit, of course, their biggest aircraft manufacturer.
With millions of Filipinos working in the U.S., especially in healthcare and tech, there are concerns about possible immigration restrictions under Trump. But Romualdez believes Filipino workers will remain in high demand.
I think you must have heard about Elon Musk saying that they will need H-1B visas to be issued because they have a lot of talent coming from the Asian region and also including the Philippines. So I think that will probably, I don't think it's going to be, it will change.
But beyond trade and jobs, the bigger battle may be for U.S. investments, with ASEAN countries competing to attract companies. Romualdez says that the Philippines must work harder to stay on the radar.
We're working together with our economic managers, so Secretary Recto and Secretary Frederick Go. I think that they're formulating a strategy to be able to lure more of the investments, not only from the United States, but from other countries as well.
As Trump's economic policies take shape, Romualdez sees both opportunities and risks for the Philippines.
The BPO industry, we're very much on the top list of those that can actually take care of that sector. And I don't think that that's going to be touched by the United States or the Trump administration, because it's a growing market in the Philippines because we're an English-speaking country.
The Philippines has a solid chance to gain from these shifting global dynamics, but only if it stays proactive and competitive in the global market. Mike Yoreta, BNC.
There is a strong call to implement a total ban on the deployment of Filipinos to Kuwait following the death of another overseas Filipino worker, Jenny Alvarado. Joining us via Zoom is the Executive Director of the Center for Migrant Advocacy that's working on the rights and welfare of OFWs and their families, Ms. Ellen Sana. Good afternoon, Ms. Ellen.
Hi, good afternoon, Miss Mai, and good afternoon to all your viewers.
Yes, first of all, Ms. Ellen, were the agreements before not enough to protect our OFWs in Kuwait?
Well, supposedly, you remember during the time of President Duterte, deployment was also suspended following the discovery of the body of W. Dimafelis. After that, there was a memorandum of agreement by the two countries, Kuwait and Philippines, and it was hailed as a model bilateral for protection of our migrant domestic workers. So I think that question is, we have the policy, the protection policy in place, not to mention that we also have our respective laws, both in the Philippines and in Kuwait. So I think the issue is in terms of do we have enough protection? We have, at least on paper. But I think at the end of the day, what we need to see is that these agreements, these measures to strengthen protection for our workers, particularly on site when they are in Kuwait, should be guaranteed, should be literally enforced. And that compliance, particularly by the employers, should be monitored. And proper sanctions, if needed or if warranted, should be done.
Especially nga meron na nga ring labor agreement noong 2018 after nga the death of Joanna Dimafelis. What needs to be done to put more teeth into our laws?
I think monitoring, closely monitoring, both from the two parties, Kuwaiti and Philippine government, should be there. And I think it's in the agreement as well. There's a joint committee to periodically review the provisions to make sure that it's up to date with what's happening in terms of the realities on the ground, particularly on site. But then again, you will recall that following Dimafelis, we have additional migrant domestic workers who were found, whose bodies were found, in 2023.
Yes. This is Julie B. Ranara. Yes.
Julie B. And then after that, meron pa yung sila Constancia Layog. And this was following after the 2018 bilateral. So parang ang question is, we already have it in place, so why are these things happening? So I think we need to closely look now at the employers and making sure that the employers are aware that there is such agreement between the two countries that, they are the ones in need of these domestic workers who also function as caregivers, etc. But then they do not take responsibility in terms of ensuring that their rights and their well-being are protected. So dapat siguro yun ang tutukan na yung obligasyon ng employers in Kuwait ay minomonitor talaga that they are following yung minimum standards if the minimum pa nga yung expectations natin
Yes.
and then not even complying with that.
Yun na nga po, noong 2018, may deployment ban because of the death of Joanna de Mafelis. And then 2023, another deployment ban, but it was lifted in 2024. Ngayon po, they're considering again imposing a ban. What's your take on that po? What do you think the government should do?
Okay, I think that it would be the same in terms of the nature of the ban, that it will only be for the newly hired. And those who have existing contracts, those who are already in Kuwait, will be allowed to finish the contract. Siyempre, nasa batas natin yan. Prerogative ng gobyerno that if they see fit, they can declare a deployment ban. Ang concern lang natin, you will recall, lagi tayong declare ng deployment ban every time na may heinous crimes na nangyayari sa ating mga OFWs, particularly migrant domestic workers. And interestingly, in this case, puro sa Kuwait ang mga issues na ito. So baka kailangan ding mas maging reflective tayo na yun bang ban, does it really work effectively?
Yeah.
Because for example, in the case of Lebanon, when we imposed the ban following the Lebanon war in 2016, at imbis na umunti yung mga workers doon, lalong dumami. So I think baka mas kailangang may thorough assessment. Ano ba yung...
All right. Ms. Ellen Sana, are you still there?
As a national domestic workers law,
We have
meron
you
pa
back,
tayong
ma'am.
bilateral, and yet, the violations of the rights of migrant domestic workers, hanggang pinapatay sila, continue. So something must be, there must be something that we are failing to look at or to address.
Yes. Finally, Ms. Sana, let's move now to the U.S. What is your take on the Trump administration's immigration policy, and how can we protect Filipino migrants there, especially the undocumented ones?
Yeah, very interesting times, challenging times. This is the second term of President Trump. So nung una pa niyang term in 2017, ganyan na yung kanyang tingin sa mga immigrants. And of course, he's emphasizing in his narrative na ang crackdown would be only affecting those without legal status. So, and of course, as we also know, we have a lot, hundreds of thousands, 370,000 ang estimate ng Filipinos without legal status. Kaya lamang, if you will see also, nung first term ni Trump, a lot of deportations took place. Pero as far as the Philippines is concerned, ito, sa context muna ng Pilipino, as the good ambassador said, hindi naman this is not a major concern. For sure, it will always be a concern for a Filipino who has no immigration status, yung kanyang status doon sa bansa na baka ako ma-deport, baka ako ma-apprehend, etc. Hindi yan bago. Kaya lamang, I think, at the end of the day, what we need to see is, you have to have a deeper appreciation. Ano bagang nangyari? Bakit ang daming undocumented in the US, such as the case of the Filipinos? Sa kaso kasi ng Philippines, baka kailangan ding inuance. Halimbawa, ang laging tinatarget ni Trump, yung nasa border, as in tatawid ka lang sa bakod. Sa kaso ng Pilipinas, mahaba na yung history natin since when we were still a colony of the US. So, and most of our workers go to the US legally. At nagiging undocumented sila. Hindi dahil gusto nila, pero maraming cracks yung sistema ng immigration policy sa Amerika. So, if you look at the record of the immigrants in the US, pinakang mataas ang bilang ng mga Pilipinong legally going or arriving in the U.S. than any other migrants, migrant nationalities. So I think on the part of the Philippines, ang sabi nga ni Ambassador, huwag masyadong mag-alala, pero dapat ding mag-alala at the same time. And one of the measures that we appreciate, for example, was yung pagpo-post ng ating embahada sa Washington, D.C., calling the attention of all Filipinos in the U.S. and with emphasis on regardless of your immigration status, that you have rights. So hindi ka pwedeng basta-basta na lang papasukin yung iyong workplaces at maghahanap yung mga ICE, Immigration, Customs, enforcement agencies ng sinong walang mga papel dito. Because this has been done time and time again by the US government. At maganda ring mabalikan natin, mabalik tanaw, na sa bahagi ng mga Filipinos in the US, they have a place in history, lalo na sa workers movement, na sila ay nagtatanggol ng mga karapatan ng mga immigrant workers doon, regardless of status. So meron tayong bahagi, malaking bahagi sa pagbubuo ng communities na nagkakaroon ng resistance and resilience against anti-immigrant policies of the US government. And not only Trump, because even in the case of the Obama government, mas marami pa kayong na-deport under the Obama government kaysa yung the first 3 years of the term of President Trump.
Yes.
So again, I think ang problema, kailangang irepaso ng Amerika ang kanilang immigration policies ng pagpapapasok doon kasi they need the migrant workers. For example, more than 50% of the entire agricultural sector of the U.S. is dependent on migrant workers. At karamihan dyan, complicit yung employers na undocumented yung mga workers kasi they can pay them very low wages indeed.
Okay, so marami pa po tayong aabangan at babantayan in terms of the US policies, lalo na dyan sa immigration. Maraming salamat po. Thank you for your insights, Ms. Ellen Sana of the Center for Migrant Advocacy. We are taking a break. Still to come, the country's economic growth this year and the next expected to miss the government's target. Find out why when Newsfeed at Noon returns. Back in Newsfeed at Noon, days after lawmakers and even the president denied the existence of blank items in the national budget, a new twist emerges. Another lawmaker now confirms that blank line items may actually be in the BICAM report for several government agencies. Zandro Ochona has that story.
Another lawmaker agrees there may be blank items on the BICAM report for several government agencies, while administration lawmakers, including the Senate President, insist there are none. Both Kabataan Party List Representative Raul Manuel and Davao City 3rd District Representative Isidro Ungab say a copy of the BICAM report they received in their email say otherwise.
Very disappointing to know na totoo na yung BICAM report na nakarating sa mga mambabatas na niratify ng House at ng Senate ay may mga blank. Actually, maliban pala sa maraming mga binanggit nating dahilan kung bakit tayo nag-manifest ng ating pagtutol doon sa BICAM report, meron pa palang ganitong dagdag na anomalya doon sa niratify na budget.
Manuel finds 12 blank items all under projects of the Agriculture Department. 8 blank items fall under the Office of the Agriculture Secretary, 2 blank items under BIFAR, 1 from the Philippine Coconut Authority, another for NIA, and 2 for unprogrammed appropriations. Ungab said he was only verifying the reports that the DPWH allocation was bigger than the Education Department But blank items caught his attention.
Kasi sa annexes pa lang, sa attachment, page SP11, malapit lang doon sa first few pages eh. Blanco kagad ang nakita ko. So I was shocked. Then hinanap ko.
Ungab, who first rang the alarm on these blank items, saw more blank items in the BICAM report.
Ang daming blanco sa bicameral conference committee report. So all in all, there were 13 pages na may mga blanks and 28 blank items yung nakita ko.
The Senate President who signed the BICAM report defended the process amid these allegations.
Unawain po ninyo, ang budget ay may humigit kumulang 200,000 linya na may mga nakasulat na pamagat, titulo ng proyekto at amount. Hindi yun ganun kasimple na gawin o ginagawa. Ay nakasaad doon na otorisado ang Committee on Appropriation and Finance na mag-correct, magpuno, maglagay dahil posible na may nakaligtaan doon.
But both Ungab and Manuel agree there is a problem with this explanation.
May problema kasi yung na-pirmahan at saka yung na-approve na bicameral conference, may mga blanco. That is the main basis or the foundation of the final General Appropriations Bill or the General Appropriations Act na pipirmahan ng Presidente.
Ang usapin dito, kung merong mga blank, yung niratify ng House at ng Senate, tapos yung nakarating na sa Pangulo for signature ay wala ng blanks, sino yung nag-fill in the blanks? Kasi tingin natin hindi dapat ganun yung mangyari. Lahat ng batas, ang fine print niyan, kahit anong period, number, letter, dapat ay na-ratify yan ng House at ng Senate.
The youth representative further explains the implications of these actions may go beyond how the Constitution defines the process.
Ang pwede nilang gawin ng Presidente ay pirmahan yung budget as a whole, tapos kung meron siyang ilang portions na gustong i-veto or i-qualify, yun lang yung pwede niyang gawin. Pero hindi pwede na yung Presidente o kung sino mga staff niya or appointed official yung mag-tinker ng numbers.
Ungab, who was chairman of the House Appropriations twice under the Duterte administration, agrees with this.
But how did they come up with figures na nilagay doon sa GAA na kompleto na may mga blanco dito sa Bicameral Conference Committee report? Because your Bicameral Conference Committee report reconciles the two versions. Hindi ka pwede maglagay ng figures doon sa GAA na wala dito sa Bicameral Conference Committee report. And remember, the Bicameral Conference Committee report was ratified by the two houses.
But for administration lawmakers, politics is behind these allegations.
Intriga politika. Minsan nahahaluan na rin ng fake news. So sa tingin ko, hindi naman po fair na yung mga ganong comments na blind approval o blanco na budget yung ina-approve. Hindi po totoo yun at hindi po ganun na magtrabaho yung mga kasama natin dito sa Kongreso, sa Senado at saka sa Executive.
Maraming pumirma, maraming nakakita, maraming tumingin. Bakit isang quarter lang yung nagsasabing blanco ito?
Zandro Ochona, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Up ahead, the DICT warning candidates against carrying out tax scams this election season. Stay with us here on Newsfeed at noon. Good morning, everyone! Yan na. Nasa pa si Mika. That's okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ferdy Salvador, sitting in for Paulo De Rosario. We bring you the news you need to stay ahead.
Rise and shine, beautiful people. I'm Ann Asis Carrillo, and I'm Monique Cruzon. Your mornings are mo fun with us.
I'm loving it.
Wherever this day takes you, choose joy and spread kindness.
Only here on It's a Beautiful Day.
Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb.
The questions.
What would you attribute this milestone?
We attribute this to is, of course, the dedication and hard work of our officials.
The issues.
Has there been any change from this year?
Nearing to 2022 elections, this is actually lower to that election as compared to the present.
We clarify matters.
Is this a normal drop that we see?
It's normal to have declines in both trust and performance.
Pinky Webb is always on point.
Ako we believe and we hope part yun ng pangarap. Katapos kasi if you go back so mga about 10 to 15 years ago when my kids were young, pagpupunta tayo sa 'di ba sa let's say mag-shopping, when we check out, noon magdadala na ako ng sarili kong bag. Tapos medyo makikipag-away pa ako kasi 10 to 15 years ago hindi pa accepted 'yon. Parang sasabihin nila, ay ma'am hindi pwede, we need to use our own plastic bag. And then kailangan kong magtatense ang aking mga anak kasi medyo makikipag-away. So I will say, no,
lumalaban ka talaga.
Pero ngayon hindi na, di ba?
They actually encourage you.
Encourage. So that's a change in 10 years. So dito, kinikilabutan ako, but we're hopeful. Kasi kailangan din ng mundo. We need this.
For all of us.
Yeah, it's for all of us and for our future.
In terms of the Philippines political context, a lot of leakages, quote unquote, are happening. To actually get that, I think, 28 billion increase in ACAP funds in 2024, that might explain why the ayuda not just is not enough for so many people in need because of joblessness, but maybe even the ayuda being assigned is not even going to those who need it at all.
What's driving growth? Let's talk to the experts. A global group is teaming up with the Philippines to boost infrastructure investments, break down the numbers, and uncover the stories that matter. Now, the country's unemployment rate drops to 3.9% in October. From local developments to global trends and everything in between, Google launches a powerful new chip that can make computers work much faster. Connect the dots to give you the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. I'm Mike Yorata. Join me on Business 360.
You're back on Newsfeed at noon. Recapping today's headlines, the United States, through its Secretary of State, affirms its commitments to the Philippines under the Mutual Defense Treaty. 17 Filipino seafarers are released after more than a year of captivity in Yemen. A bank projects the Philippine gross domestic product, or GDP growth, is expected to miss the government's target for 2025 and next year. And 90s music will have a comeback this weekend with OPM legends Wency Cornejo and Cookie Chua to render songs that defined that era. We'll have a chat with Wency and Cookie later in the show. Topping business news, the Philippine gross domestic product, or GDP growth, is expected to miss the government's target for 2025 and next year. This is the projection of DBS Bank in its ASEAN 6 2025 outlook. DBS says Philippine GDP may grow by 5.8% in 2025 and 5.6% in 2026. This is lower than the government's 6 to 8% target for both years. It explains this is due to easing inflation, which will provide relief to household purchasing, and rice tariffs cut that will lower its prices. Health advocates and various groups are sounding the alarm over a proposal in the House of Representatives to suspend the annual tax hike on tobacco products, warning it could deal a major blow to public health efforts. They stress that one Filipino dies every 6 minutes due to smoking, making tobacco taxes a crucial tool in discouraging use. Agatha Gregorio has that story.
Some groups and senators were alarmed over the increase in smoking prevalence in the country these past few years. And so some health experts and advocacy groups recommend raising taxes.
Further increase in taxation of sin products that include standard tobacco products and electronic smoking devices. Effective taxation has been shown to effectively reduce tobacco use. Furthermore, we recommend to make taxes on electronic smoking devices unitary and increases to rates equal to tobacco products, since electronic smoking devices is equally harmful as smoking tobacco products.
According to data from the DOST Food and Nutrition Research Institute, smoking status of adults 20 years old and up were on a downward trend from 2003 until 2021, but it went up to 23% in 2023 from 18% in 2021. Senator Win Gatchalian says among his recommendations is the increase of taxes on heated tobacco products and e-cigarettes. But over at the House of Representatives, a bill was filed to suspend the annual increase of 5% for taxes on tobacco and vapor products.
There are proposals from the lower house that use the data on illicit trade to justify actually calling for a decrease in the tax rates on cigarettes. We found that, in fact, if we decrease tobacco taxes, it will result in higher consumption of cigarettes as well as greater profit and greater revenue for the tobacco industry. But on the other side, in the next slide, we found that it will lose the government foregone revenue worth 27.5 billion pesos.
The Southeast Asia Tobacco Control Alliance cited numbers from the World Customs Organization. They say around 70% of the global illicit tobacco market is from companies themselves who sell products in the black market.
It would therefore not be a surprise if tobacco companies were driving illicit trade in the Philippines. Many of us still remember, as mentioned earlier, that in 2018, Mighty Corporation paid the government 30 billion pesos to settle its case of tax evasion.
On Bilyonaryo News Channel's On Point, Syntax Coalition convener Dr. Tony Dans said border controls and tracking would prevent smuggling, not a tax reduction.
Ang layo-layo ng price ng smuggled illicit cigarettes from the legal cigarettes. Even if you lower it and cancel the 5% increment every year, that's not enough.
Disparity.
Oh, hindi hihinto ang smuggling. If you want to stop smuggling, you control the border.
Dans also clarified the Syntax law is a health measure first and not a revenue generator, noting every year that more than 700 billion pesos is spent treating smoking-related illnesses, while government only earned over 130 billion in 2023. Dr. Dans also could not stress enough the danger House Bill 11297 poses to the public.
Every 6 minutes, one Filipino dies because of tobacco.
Is that so?
And they're going to increase that by lowering the tax and increasing the number of smokers. And how long have we been talking, right?
Yeah.
If we talk for 30 minutes, 5 Filipinos have died in the short time that we talk because of tobacco.
Agatha Gregorio, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Authorities warn candidates of consequences if they are found using a text scam gadget during the elections. This comes after a Malaysian national was caught in possession of the contraband this week. Francis Falve reports.
A Malaysian national believed to be a supplier of the International Mobile Subscriber Identity or IMSI catcher devices was arrested Tuesday. In an operation by the PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group, the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, the Bureau of Immigration, and the National Telecommunications Commission.
Ang operation po nagsimula po sa proactive na cyber patrolling ng PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group, and also po nakita po natin itong suspect na nagpo-post po siya ng advertisement online sa isang social media platform or sa Facebook page na nagbebenta po siya ng text blast machine with the IMSI catcher built-in.
The device is valued at approximately 600,000 pesos. Investigators discovered the suspect had been frequently traveling between the Philippines, Thailand, and China. According to CICC Executive Director Yusek Alexander Ramos, The equipment is capable of intercepting and sending text messages to mobile phones within its range.
Ito ho, mobile, magkakasya sa backpack. So, makabagong technology to, ang kanilang in-introduce sa atin. Once it is tested or up and running, ino-overcome niya yung signal ng mga cell sites. Kaya nakakapag-efficiently broadcast siya within his range. I think, nung nag-testing kami, 100 meters, lahat ng cellphones na masagap niya will receive the same message.
DICT Secretary Ivan Uy further explained that these devices are commonly used for text scams.
Dati kasi kinakarga yan sa sasakyan at umiikot sa mga public places. Normally, where a lot of people gather. Ngayon, medyo nag-improve yung technology nila. Nagkarga na sa backpack. So, pwede na sila pumasok sa malls, pumasok sa mga buildings upang gamitin itong device na ito. Once na nakuha yung numbers, pwede nilang padalhan ngayon ng text na nagyayaya na mag-invest or padala kayo ng text na si telco sila, Globe, Smart, or Dito, or Bangko, at sasabihin sa inyo na, hindi updated yung SIM card registration nyo. Kailangan mag-click kayo nitong link na ito para pumunta kayo at hihingin yung lahat ng detalye nyo.
The DICT refers to these illegal operations as post-FOGO, after scammers shifted to guerrilla-style tactics following government's crackdown on POGO hubs. Beyond small-scale POGO activities, officials warn this technology could also be used in the upcoming midterm elections in May. These devices could be used to send mass propaganda messages, either promoting or attacking political candidates. For politicians, it can provide huge advantage as they can reach a wider audience instantly.
We would like to remind to mga candidates that these equipment are illegal, they are not licensed, they are subject to confiscation and criminal prosecution if you possess these devices.
For ordinary cell phone users, a weaker signal, such as a sudden drop from LTE or 5G to 2G, is a possible sign that an IMSI catcher is active in the area. This is when scam text messages start appearing. The Malaysian national has already undergone inquest proceedings and remains in PNP ACG custody, facing charges for violating the SIM Registration Act and the Data Privacy Act. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
We are taking another breather. Up ahead, our chat with 90s OPM icons Cookie Chua and Wency Cornejo about their upcoming concert. Keep it here on Newsfeed at noon. You're back on Newsfeed at noon. Time for some nostalgia as the music of the 90s will make a comeback this weekend. Legendary lead singers of iconic OPM rock bands will have a one-night concert at the Music Museum, giving passionate fans a chance to listen to the music that defined that era. Joining us today to talk about their upcoming show, Cookie Chua of Color It Red and Wency Cornejo of After Image, who's here with us via Zoom. Hello to you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Cookie, for being with us here in the studio.
Ay, salamat din. Thank you, Wency, for joining us. Thank you po kay Wency.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about your upcoming show. I personally have a strong connection with 90s music, the bands of the 90s, diba? Because, you know, it resonates dun sa growing up years, college days, our struggles, buhay estudyante, young love, ganyan, yung mga theme nyo. So tell us, Cookie, first, no, how did this concert come about? Paano ba nabuo ito? Sino nag-conceptualize?
Kasalanan to lahat ni Wency. Years and years ago.
So dapat pala si Wency tinatanong ko, how did it happen?
Si Wency naman, parang siya yung love namin siyang lahat. At least kaming mga 90s. So, nagka-concept siya na isang show. 5 years ago pa yun, na sama-sama lahat ng vocalists ng 90s sa isang concert. So, si Wency talagang dapat tinatanong bakit niya kami naisip bigyan ng...
Okay, Wency, paano mo na-conceptualize to at sino yung mga nahagilap mo to be with you in this concert?
In this particular concert, it was actually very tumultuous kasi ang hirap magpa-oo ng ibang tao, and I was sort of left with the four that you will be watching this Saturday. Matagal na kasi talaga tong concept na to. Yung 90s concept ko started off when I was turning 50, 1 million years ago. Gusto ko lang ng birthday celebration ko. It started off as a very simple idea na maggagawa kami ng concert at the 70s Bistro, but then it sort of ballooned into something that's sort of medyo uncontrollable dahil nag-connect kami ng Soler. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on air.
It's okay.
And they produced Soler produced several. I'm not really sure how many anymore. Pero doon nagsimula. So 90s live yata yung una namin, and then nanganak. So naging continuous na siya. Every so often may lumalabas na show na 90s themed, and it seems like I became the go-to person when it comes to organizing 90s shows. Pagka ganyan yung theme.
Okay, given that your music, you know, Color It Red, After Image, you know, it shaped what the OPM scene was back then. And that era, no, the 90s music. Wency, what does this concert mean to you?
Well, honestly, I'll be learning from this. Pero it's really fantastic that I get to perform on stage with really good friends. Yan talaga yung pinaka-importante para sa akin. Cookie and I we've known each other for more than 20, 30 years na yan. I know, definitely more than 30 years. Kumbaga nakilala ko si Cookie when she was, I think, 16 years old. Can you imagine how long ago that was?
Yeah, that was Wency.
Yeah, more than 30 years. Wow, that's a lot of years, no? Ano yung mga learnings mo, Cookie? Looking back to those, you know, yung scene ng 90s, puro bands yan, rock bands, ano? And then, you know, of course, may mga collabs ka with other legends like Bayang Barrios, Miss Lolita Carbon. Yeah. Diba, you've been in and out of the music scene also. Ano yung mga natutunan mo after 3 decades?
Na walang permanent. Parang, kailangan continuous kasi yung pag-learn mo sa music. Hindi ka, at least for me, sobra ako laging, sinasabi ko Wednesday, lagi akong excited kumanta. Kasi siguro, hindi lang ako nakahon sa rock. Kasi kumakanta rin ako sa jazz standards. Tapos yun nga, nagpo-folk din with sina Lolit. So sa akin, parang hindi siya chore, hindi siya effort. Lagi siyang, thankfully hanggang ngayon, sobra pa rin ako masaya kumanta. So natutunan ko, marami akong tutunan kay Wency, gaya ng wag maliitin yung sarili, always. Kasi ako may tendency ako pag kasi may siesta ko, pag naawa na ako, pababa yung talent fee. So si Wency, ano ba naman, bigyan mo naman ng worth yung sarili mo. So gusto ko pag siya'y nagbubook kasi nasisingil na ng maayos yung producers. Joke.
That's for another discussion, ano, Wency. But thank you so much for organizing this. And Wency, gusto rin kitang tanungin, you know, we see a lot of K-pop P-pop, in today's music, artists getting younger and younger. Of course, it's a different audience now also, di ba? So how do you want to introduce your music to today's generation?
I don't know if it's necessary for us to introduce our music to the new generation. Kasi ang bata naman usually talagang naghahanap yan sila ng mababalikan nila. Like when I was a teenager, I used to listen to the older songs. Like ang mga influences ko kasi The Who, meron akong Simon and Garfunkel, but they weren't really part of my generation na mga musicians, mga early 70s, late 60s kasi yung mga yan. And I was born in 1967. Hindi ko na ipagkakaila ang aking edad. And I was in my teen years when I discovered yung music ng The Who, yun nga, the artist that I enumerated. Babalik at babalik talaga ang bata sa medyo mas luma para magkaroon ng, for lack of a better word to use, roots nila when in terms of music. And ang musika kasi ng 90s talagang nag-explode yun. It is so inescapable.
Yeah.
Yung music nung era na pinanggalingan namin, it is really, I think the perfect word to use is inescapable na. That everywhere you go, everywhere, andyan dyan yung musika namin. Even sa elevators, sa restaurants, sa doctor's offices, you will hear music from the 90s.
Yeah. Tumatak talaga yon sa atin, sa puso natin, and it's nice to relive that era. The 90s music. And also many bands have disbanded, some went solo or pursued new careers. Pero may mga reunions din, di ba? So, I'd like to ask you both, may mga reunions ba in the works of After Image, also of Color It Red, may collabs ba?
Color It Red naman kasi. Color It Red, buo pa yan sila.
Hindi kami, never kami nag-disband. Akala lang nila kasi raketera ako, hindi. Kaladkarin ko saan ako makata. Pero we are very much together. So, sina Wency, palagay ko yun dapat magsama-sama ulit.
Oo, marami naghihintay. Wency, ha? Okay. So, any projects in the works, Wency?
So right now, honestly, sinabi ko na to during the press con of our show. I'm really thinking of taking a step back from music because I want to concentrate on something else. And alam naman nila Cookie, alam ng mga tunay kong mga kaibigan, even the not so close friends know that I'm really so enamored in pizza making. And
Pizza making?
In fact,
sarap niya gumawa pizza.
In fact, I went to Italy to study last year, so I'm a certified pizzaiolo already. And right now, I really want to concentrate on putting up a pizzeria. It's still creative. It's a very, very creative endeavor. It's still part of me being a creative person. I want to be able to create pizzas that will make people think, pwede pala yung ganun. Ganyan.
Of course,
yun
pwede.
First ko ngayon.
Yes, and that's very exciting. We look forward to tasting your pizza, your specialty.
Sobrang sarap.
Okay, dapat matikman natin yan. So, please invite our viewers, Wency and Cookie. Let's start with you, Wency, before we let you go.
Yeah, salamat ha. Gusto kong imbitahan lahat po ng nanonood ngayon. Meron po kaming show in 2 days, January 25 po ito, at the Music Museum. Cookie, ikaw, dagdag?
Okay, what can fans expect, Miss Cookie?
Kasama namin doon syempre si Lay ng Prettier Than Pink, si Naldi ng Orient Pearl, and kasama din namin si Andrew E. So, masaya-masaya yung aming pangyayari na si Wency gumawa siya ng isang lineup ng songs na medyo nakakabaliw. Syempre, yung mga orig namin gagawin, pero kaabang-abang din yung mga production number. And sana yung bumili ng tickets, still available sa Ticket World, Ticket One, and sa Music Museum mismo.
Please buy their tickets. And Miss Cookie, before we let you go, of course, hihingan ka namin ng sample. Maybe please sing a few lines because I know the fans cannot wait for Saturday.
Sige, pero bago ko kantahin yun, Wency, thank you ulit. Alam ko medyo busy. Maglalaro yan eh. Thank you, love you. Salamat sa pagpayag.
Kailangan ko na talaga ng endorphins. Nababaliw na ako kaka-organize nitong show.
Thank you again, Wency, for joining us.
Sige, ito na.
Okay, Cookie Chua.
So, from Color Thread, sinulat to ni Mike Villegas and ni Barbara Christie Paraguya. So, refrain lang ha. Kung ang lahat ay may katapusan, itong paglalakbay ay makakarating din sa paroroonan. At sa iyong paglisan, ang tanging pabaong ko ay pag-ibig.
Woo! My favorite song. Thank you for joining us today. Cookie Chua, Color It Red. Abangan niyo po yung concert nila, Music Museum on Saturday. And those are the news this hour. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Good afternoon.